Are we confronting catastrophe after all? NASA specialists had initially assured us that the asteroid Apophis would simply miss Earth in 5 years. However, according to a new study, Canadian astronomer Paul Wiegert has concluded that the 350-meter-wide rock might still alter its course and take an unexpected diversion. But how likely is it that Apophis will collide with a smaller object, potentially setting its sights on Earth? And what would the consequences be if it did? If we were to assume the worst, is there anything we could do to prevent an impact? On June 19, 2004, astronomers Roy Tucker, David J. Tholen, and Fabrizio Bernardi presented the world with two things. First, the knowledge that a previously unknown asteroid was orbiting in space, and second, outright media frenzy. The celestial body Apophis immediately made headlines as an alleged killer asteroid that could come dangerously close to Earth on April 13, 2029, a Friday the 13th, no less. The asteroid's name, Apophis, named after the ancient Egyptian god of chaos and darkness, didn't help alleviate concerns. In fact, NASA experts' initial estimates gave reason for alarm. According to those estimates in December 2004, the impact probability was assessed at 1 in 37, or 2.7%. To put this into perspective, this was the highest value for an asteroid of this size reached on the Torino risk scale to date. Moreover, the corresponding impact probability at that time referred not only to the year 2029, but also to 2036 and 2068. 20 years later, however, the scientific and public anxieties have calmed significantly. Thanks to further studies, it's now considered improbable that Apophis will collide with Earth in 2029, unless something unforeseen happens in the meantime that undermines all mathematical calculations. One thing is certain, if Apophis were to impact, it probably wouldn't trigger a global apocalypse as the asteroid that ended the dinosaurs did 66 million years ago. Apophis is simply too small to cause such an event. Unfortunately, the effects of an impact would still be substantial. According to researchers, the crater from the impact alone would be several kilometers in diameter, and the force of the collision would be strong enough to devastate an area the size of Central Europe. Specifically, scientists suspect that Apophis would release the energy equivalent of 900 million tons of TNT. By comparison, the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, had an explosive power of just 15,000 tons of TNT. Although these figures are both impressive and frightening, the energy of a hypothetical Apophis impact would have to be around 1,000 times greater to destroy Earth's entire surface. Experts generally believe that the immediate kill zone would span a diameter of 250 kilometers. However, the specific impact outcomes would depend largely on where Apophis struck Earth. If it were to hit the ocean, it could blanket nearby coasts under a monstrous tsunami over 100 meters high, killing countless life forms along the shore and possibly inland. Could Apophis actually hit Earth? The good news is that, as it stands, what we have discussed is merely a terrifying thought experiment. As previously mentioned, current trajectory observations show that Apophis will narrowly miss Earth, with narrowly in this context meaning a distance of 32,000 kilometers. In 2029, the asteroid will pass below the geostationary orbit. However, the assurance of no impact comes with a small but potentially significant caveat: Apophis will only pass Earth if its trajectory remains unchanged. The probability of a change in orbit is low but not zero. Astronomers have found that Apophis is currently experiencing a slight orbit change due to solar radiation pressure, shifting its orbit by about 170 meters per year. Thankfully, this shift isn't enough to direct Apophis toward Earth in 2029. Unfortunately, it could lead to an impact during a later flyby. There's also some possibly unwelcome news. Even the best current projections can't rule out the possibility of Apophis being struck by a smaller asteroid. Canadian astronomer Paul Wiegert from the University of Western Ontario explains that such an impact could impart enough energy to deflect Apophis significantly. NASA's DART mission recently demonstrated how a celestial body can be deflected when a spacecraft collided with the 1,065-meter-wide asteroid moonlet Dimorphos. In Apophis's case, such a push could have serious consequences. Given Apophis's current path, the chances of it hitting another asteroid remain slim. It has been out of Earth's field of view since 2021, and it won't be back until 2027. Its current path near the Sun makes it invisible to even the most powerful telescopes. Meanwhile, we won't know precisely how much its orbit has changed until at most 2 years before its flyby. Using a model simulation, Wiegert has examined what would need to happen for Apophis to pose a threat to us. His first task was to determine the potentially dangerous size of a battering ram asteroid. Earlier studies showed that Apophis's orbit would need to shift by around 200 kilometers to allow it to enter the keyhole, a small region near Earth where Earth's gravitational pull would deflect Apophis in 2029 enough to put our planet in its sights when it next appears in 2036. A collision with an object only 60 centimeters across could theoretically deflect Apophis enough to reach the keyhole by changing its speed by around 0.0003 meters per second, enough to shift its path by the necessary 200 kilometers. The conditions for an impact in 2029 are slightly different. Apophis's speed would need to change by about 0.02 meters per second, meaning it would have to collide with a 3.4 meter wide object. Fortunately, Wiegert points out that the probability of Apophis entering the keyhole due to a collision is 1 in a million. Calculations place the likelihood of a 2029 impact at 1 in 100 million, which, combined with the need for the collision to happen at a precise time and in a precise direction, drops the probability even further. In short, while the risk of impact is very low from a purely mathematical perspective, if Apophis did come into close contact with Earth, calculations would no longer be of help to us. This is why it's important for experts to track Apophis's trajectory as accurately as possible starting in February 2027, when it re-enters our field of vision. A deviation of more than a few tenths of an arc-second could indicate a disruption to its orbit. Further studies are already in progress. Researchers are developing a small satellite to accompany Apophis during its Earth flyby. Despite the risk, Apophis offers scientists a huge potential for knowledge. An approach from an object of this size only occurs every few centuries on average, giving researchers a rare opportunity to study a near-Earth asteroid up close. When Apophis enters our view, it will appear as a small shining in the night sky.